There are moments in every person's life when they face intense adversity. They're crucibles that forge who they become as individuals and as leaders. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are called to a higher standard, focused on leaving it better than they found it, and paying it forward to the next generations. Now, let's join Fire Chief Randy Brugman as he speaks with leaders from all walks of life, as he explores and learns from their personal journeys and the crucibles that have forged them into better leaders and better people.
Well, thanks for joining me on the Leadership Crucible podcast. Today, my guest is Russell A. Jackson. Russell is a proven nonprofit leader and innovator with a sound history of developing and implementing nonprofit programs and community initiatives. His life journey began as a firefighter with the City of Hoover in Alabama, where a tragic medical call and the death of a 2-year-old boy would redirect Russell's career path and lead him to the founding of Kid One Transport, a nonprofit medical transport program that has become a national model and to date has served more than 50,000 children and expectant mothers via a partnership with Mercedes-Benz U.S. International. Russell has received more than 200 community and national awards, with more notable ones being the CNN Hero, Tiger Woods Foundation Hero, Johnson & Johnson Healthcare Hero, Costco's National Marketing Making a Difference recipient, and the Mercedes-Benz Drive for Excellent Award. However, his most cherished award was being named one of AOL's Amazing Dads of 2008, because family means more to Russell than anything else. A keynote speaker, trainer, and serving on several national committees, Russell is one of the most sought-after nonprofit specialists in the United States. Russell has been married to his incredible wife and best friend for 24 years, Mary, and has 2 amazing children, Harrison Parker and Mackenzie Grace, along with 3 absolutely rotten pets, Byron, Bernie, and Bailey. Well, Russell, it's a pleasure and an honor to have you on the show today on the Leadership Crucible, and welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here. Appreciate it.
Well, thanks. I appreciate you coming on. You know, I know you've faced many situations in your life that have really tested you and really have shaped who you've become as not only a person, but as a leader. There was one particular story that we talked about, that medical call that you went on when you were a young firefighter, that really did change the direction of your life. And I wondered if you could just share that with the audience today.
Sure. Yeah, it sure did. As most firefighters, we remember some of those calls. And this was March 28th, 1992, Saturday morning. My engine company received a call on an unresponsive child. Literally was just 2 blocks from the station. Engine company arrived. As we were getting off the unit, the father was running outside screaming for us. He grabbed us. We went up the stairs. The older brother was on the front porch screaming, "He's dead, he's dead." So we knew we were going into a really emotional scene. Mom was doing CPR on the floor of the living room, and the child was blue, basically from the neck up, 2 years old. We asked Mom and Dad what had happened. He had went down to retrieve a toy out of the front seat of the car in the garage, and his neck slid into the crease of the window and window frame. And they found him hanging. We were unsuccessful, but, I had seen a lot, obviously, with the interstate system through our district and others. Something about this, Randy, was different. It really changed me. It was a very emotional experience. Mm-hmm. So the counselor recommended I get involved in the community as a way to work through that grief and to find some understanding of it. And that it wasn't a failure moment for us. It was just part of the job and what happened. And from that, my world was changed. I was introduced to public service in the community and volunteering and unmet needs in the state of Alabama and things I guess I'd taken for granted growing up in a very affluent city in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm. So how long did you work after that in the fire service before you started to transition into your nonprofit role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I began volunteering, got involved with a group called the Junior Chamber of Commerce. They were working in the rural areas as well, doing service. So met this little boy who had never been to the doctor. He had a speech impediment. His family said he was born at home because they had no way to get to the doctor. And so I said, well, can I take him to Children's Hospital? And I did, along with some other volunteers. They found a lesion on his brain, removed it. And each week I would take him to speech therapy and physical therapy. And these other social workers would come down and say, are you the firefighter that brought Christopher in? I've got a little girl. She missed all of her chemo last week because her family's car broke down. And then I would hear case after case. And I started taking these kids on my off day. And I did a little research, met with the Community Foundation and others, and realized, you know what, this is a huge need. But what I kept hearing was nobody can figure out this lack of public transportation need. It's going to be too expensive. People have tried, they have failed. And as a young firefighter, I felt that they were wrong. This is a solvable problem. We're missing 4 wheels and an engine. My goodness, this is not rocket science. And so I spent from 93 to 97 doing my research, understanding the nonprofit sector, volunteering with every kind of nonprofit that I could to better understand management of nonprofits, special event designs, what's effective, volunteer recruitment, you name it, all across the board. And so in April of 97, I passed the baton basically at the fire service and went to full time with the organization that I am called Kid One Transport.
So tell us a little bit about Kid One Transport. I mean, you've kind of laid the foundation of how that, how you got to actually implementing that, but tell us a little bit about that and how that, kind of came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So recognizing it was a huge need, after leaving my job, we sent out applications, if you will, to all the pediatricians and social workers in the 30 county region of Birmingham to have a better understanding of the actual need, because that was the one question prospective funders were asking. Mm-hmm. So what is the need and how are you going to meet the need? Never in my wildest imagination did I know that we would get 3,000 applications back within a 1-month period from credible sources that knew that they had children, clients living in a situation where they could not access medical, mental, or physical care. Even expectant moms couldn't even reach prenatal care for their duration of the pregnancy. So 6 months into it, we were getting a lot of publicity. It was unintended publicity. I never want anyone to know that I had sold my house, cashed out my retirement, and truly took what most perceived was a crazy leap of faith, giving up my love as a firefighter. But I just knew it was the right thing to do. And so with Kid One, Mercedes-Benz had just opened their first U.S. plant, literally 45 minutes from Birmingham. They reached out to us, said, my goodness, you're right. This is solvable. 25 years later, Mercedes still provides all the brand new vehicles. They replace them every year for these kids to get a free ride to medical care, which is absolutely amazing. 50,000 kids. I mean, I would have never again thought that 50,000 unique kids would have accessed medical care in the state of Alabama, all through private sector support, which I think is an amazing testament to the goodness of people.
Yeah, really is. And well, I think it's a testament to the passion that became Kid One from you, but also I think the courage to take that step was pretty significant. I mean, when you're, at that age, I mean, you're just kind of coming up and getting settled in. And I know you were married at that time, had kids, and
no. So when I had made the decision and given notice to Chief, who was very, very supportive at the time of this, I had just started dating a young lady who I've now been married to for 24 years. So Mary has been through the journey with me, and I couldn't have done it without her. She's been my rock through the times where I questioned that I make the right decision, and also to know I gave up a retirement. I gave up the other benefits, the many other perks, I guess, of the job to go into a world that doesn't normally offer a lot of benefits, but that's okay. I always jokingly say, I'm okay with being a 98-year-old Walmart greeter as long as I know that I did what God placed in my heart And I look back and it's worth every penny because you can't put a price tag on the lives that have been improved through that effort. And so I'm okay with that.
I hear from so many leaders like yourself that, you have to follow your passion. And it seems like the best leaders and the ones that make the most impact, go into that or follow the passion with a secondary motivation, and that is I want to make a difference.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And it's without question, though, it is an uncomfortable thing to do. And it is illogical. And most people would look and like my guys at the station. Have you lost your mind? We know that was a hard call on you, buddy, but geez. And I just knew it was the right thing to do. And I think I always encourage young people today, even my son who aspires to be a neurosurgeon. I'm like, buddy, just do what God's placed in your heart and you will be happy. You may never be rich, but that's okay. Happiness far exceeds that.
Yeah, there's so many people today, I think, in jobs that they're not real passionate about, which is unfortunate because everybody's got, a niche and a passion they should follow. And so you're a good example of being able to, having the strength and the courage to do that.
Thank you.
So Kid One Transport, has other states, other people looked at this and said, hey, that's a great idea. Can we replicate it here in Lincoln, Nebraska or wherever?
Yeah. So during the time that I was there, before I passed the baton to my successor, we were inundated with calls because of the national exposure. It was noted by Johnson & Johnson and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services as the most innovative program of its kind. Isn't that sad?
Yeah.
A car ride to the doctor was innovative, but nonetheless, we received calls because of that notoriety around the country. Some began to try to emulate the program, but found it was extraordinarily difficult and costly to do. We're blessed in Alabama. Our vehicles come to us for free. And then also we just have some tremendous philanthropists that make sure that it continues to survive as well. Not easy, obviously, to live off of private sector contributions, and it has its ups and downs. But in Florida right now, in Miami, there is a group underway that's just launched green cars for kids. So they're taking the Kid One model. We've been giving them some good, free intel of what not to do and how to handle. And they are actually going to approach it differently, Randy, as a broker. So they're going to raise the money and hire Uber drivers and others to get the kids to and from, so they don't have to worry about the vehicle and driver side of it. So we're going to be watching that, and they call it green cars because they're only going to put them on electric Ubers and Lyft rides because they want to have an environmental conscious message to it as well. But we've seen firefighters pick up and start doing this on their off days around the country. I've had testimonials from California to Minnesota to South Carolina. So but it's never become a formalized entity, if you will, like a St. Jude's or Make-A-Wish, just because it's overwhelming just to keep the state of Alabama afloat.
Well, I mean, the concept could be taken any place. I mean, it's just a matter of, I think people that live in a community saying we've got this need as well, doing the same process as you did is, what is the need, and then how do we fix it? And there's money in every community to I think support programs like this, and as you have mentioned, if you don't get good health care, the expense overall on the system downstream is significantly more. I mean, we see that in the fire service all the time, right?
Well, we do. When I started the organization, I just did it because I thought it was wrong. Someone cannot access medical care when they need it. Later, it was emergency room physicians or hospital administrators would tell the stories of, these kids in rural Alabama would have an illness develop. Mom and dad wasn't sure what it was, couldn't get them to a doctor because they didn't have a ride. Now, fast forward 8 weeks, that little issue that probably could have been treated with an antibiotic has compounded into a multitude of things. They're eligible for an ambulance ride, and that's a train wreck coming in through the ER door. So what would have cost Medicaid, a couple thousand on the front end, is now going to cost 70 plus thousand, let alone the loss of school time, the impact on mom having to leave work, whatever the case is. And so you're right. There's a ripple effect when we cannot access medical care in a timely manner.
And that's been always one of my frustrations from just an emergency response standpoint, is that, if they would just take half of that investment and invest in programs like this, the downstream savings are significant and exacerbated across the entire system. And so there's just the lack of vision sometimes is really frustrating.
Yes, it is. It is. And a Birmingham fire chief kind of defined, he said, Russell, because not being in a city that had a lot of needs of people unable to access medical care, he said, Russell, you're preventing our rescue crews now from being doc in the box, because now they just call you to get a ride to the doctor. And before, they were calling 911 for us on fevers, coughs, and other things. And something we just don't think about until we're in the trenches and we see that. So you're right. Fire departments are a logical partner for this program.
Well, I would hope that not only fire and emergency services across the U.S. and actually worldwide, but also corporations would do what Mercedes-Benz has done and step up and say, hey, there's a need here. We can help, whether it's with the vehicles or just purchasing vehicles. So, yeah.
Yes.
So, you've been in the nonprofit world for, a long time now, but you've also become a real expert in it. And so I know you've helped, I think, over 140, 150 nonprofits do assessments and development. And can you tell us a little bit about that effort?
I can't, who would have ever thought I'd go from fire service to this? But during my time at Kid One, I was consistently asked by foundations, companies, other nonprofits around the country, could I come and meet with them? They have an idea. I didn't know why they were reaching out to me. And I was even asked to do classes to talk about why did Kid One explode in the Birmingham market and became one of the fastest growing, most successful charities at that time. I have no way to define how that happened. That was God's work. It was hard work. It was a culmination of many factors, but that's not something you put in a PowerPoint and explain to anybody. But nonetheless, I met with all these groups around the country. And ultimately, that's what led me to leave Kid One. I passed the baton in my 9th year. I helped the board find a successor, because I believe when you found something, you're not found in it to create a job. You're found in it specific to the nonprofit world to meet a need. And that need has been met. Now it's moving on to the others. So as such, I've helped a number of groups around the country. But prior to doing that, I spent during my 9 years at Kid One being a sponge, learning from the best nonprofit CEOs in the nation, the best experts in specific fields. And with the clients that I've had over the years, I've had introduction to the best branding firms and the best assessment firms and planning firms. And so it's just been a blessing for me to be able to interact with all these people. But going to training at Harvard's nonprofit programs and Georgetown and the Center for Creative Excellence and other things has really been a benefit to me. But I always use this analogy, Randy. So yes, I've helped a lot of nonprofits, and I have been able to serve via writing organizational assessments, doing a turnaround strategy, developing new programs to serve a need, new fundraisers, but I stay in my lane. And that's what I always tell everybody. Stay in your lane. You can't be an expert in everything. So I've kind of honed down what my area of expertise is, creating synergy for organizations that sometimes maybe has lost that synergy over the course of time, but the need is still there and it's a viable entity. It's been a ride. I have absolutely enjoyed it. And diversity is what I've enjoyed most. Going from Girl Scouts to like a Make-A-Wish to a humane society to a public education system. It's just to be able to see how every one of these entities, they truly are the second tier of the responder community in every community. And without them, I cannot imagine what the social fabric would be like in those communities. It would be weak where they help make it strong. And I just love that.
Well, and I think that brings me to, I co-chaired a 21st Century Fire and Emergency Services report that came out a couple of years ago. And one of one of the acritical issues that were identified in there were partnerships for the fire and emergency services. And it speaks exactly to what you're talking about. It's, we need to see ourselves more from the emergency response side as partners within the community addressing, some of the tears in our fabric of our society. And we're in a great position to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
And for nonprofits in the community, they should be reaching out to their fire and police departments to engage with them because the first responders often see things in the community far sooner than the community sees them.
Yes, no, I agree. And chiefs need to embrace that when someone in the nonprofit sector reaches out, don't automatically think, oh, goodness, they're coming with their hands out. Really understand the program and the services that they offer and how it applies to the work of the fire service. Because you're right. Oftentimes the fire service, they uncover needs well before social workers ever brought in or involved or made aware of it. Because pride prohibits a lot of people, parents specifically, from asking for help. They don't want to be considered getting a handout. Fire departments can remove that perception and bring in the services that these families need.
I totally agree. Well, from the work that you've done in that arena, what are some of the common problems that you've found that get organizations into trouble?
Well, first and foremost, lack of direction. And oftentimes, especially specific to the nonprofit world, you have extraordinary passion, obviously, in that building. And they're all focused on that thing that they love. But sometimes that passion becomes misguided. Mm-hmm. And they start going into so many different endeavors. Because let's face it, when you're in the nonprofit world, specific to whatever your mission is, goodness gracious, you uncover needs constantly. You cannot solve every single problem. And so as such, that lack of direction and having a focus is most of the groups that I've been brought in to do a turnaround. That was the key indicator. What got them into trouble was that passion, or as I always call, chasing the money. Going to get a federal grant to start a new program, never thinking about the future sustainability of that program when that grant runs out. So that's it. Unwilling to think outside the box, fearful of that change. And the only way we're going to survive, I always talk about the Winn-Dixie super grocery store analogy. They just stuck to their model. This has always worked, and they effectively went out of business now. Constantly, even in any leadership role, you need to be thinking outside the box and embracing change. Change is happening rapidly. We better embrace it, or we're going to be left behind. Staff sometimes are promoted because of tenure, or they're promoted because of they're just nice people or my friends. And as such, bless our heart, great people, hardworking, but they lack the knowledge and experience that they need to be more effective in what they do. And ultimately, it has more of a negative impact on the organization. That's more common than I realized over the clients that I've been able to help. Poor communication, that goes without saying. That's a big, and sometimes the wrong kind of communications that are going out, And then I think the biggest thing is organizations need to embrace bringing in outside perspectives. Sometimes they do that through their board, but let's just say you're not a nonprofit, all right? Everyone needs to surround themselves with not like-minded individuals. They need to bring in these people with differing opinions and the experts in the various fields, because no matter what organization you're in, even in the fire service, it can be extraordinarily beneficial to you to have that think tank, if you will, at the table to guide you in your planning and your development.
Totally agree. I mean, we get so, and I think it's the leadership comfort zone. We get very comfortable with the people that we work with, what we've done in the past. But, we I think in every profession, what you've done in the past won't sustain you in the future. And it's really difficult sometimes to get out of that comfort zone and actually push the envelope, because your people and your bureaucracy, that every place has a bureaucracy, is saying, no, we don't want to do that because, we're fine how we are today. And yeah.
Correct.
So what advice would you give to people that are in leadership roles today?
Well, lead by example, walk the talk. Everyone is listening to you. Everybody is observing you, both on the job and off the job. What you do and what you say and how you respond, they're watching. So be that example today. You're never going to be perfect in a leadership role. And I see too many leaders are very hard on themselves because of that. We're human. And it's tough leading today, especially because you have differing generations that are reporting to you. But that's first. The other is please have a proactive mindset, not a reactive mindset. It's great as a firefighter. We have to be reactive to the call at the time, but we can always be proactive in our planning and how we want to structure our organization for the future. Give your team praise. Remember that it takes everyone together to make the organization strong and to achieve that mission and to make the impact that you want to make an impact is. It should never be about credit, and it should never be about the mentality of, well, that's their job. Give a little praise, show the gratitude when that gratitude is deserved. And be honest, as a leader, I've always encouraged people to build themselves. And once you hit that top leadership role and an accountability team, these are people outside of your institution. They're not your friends. Surround yourself with folks who are going to hold you accountable. They begin to see that you're straying from the mission. They begin to see that your ego is becoming well beyond what it should be. These people can call you to the table and hold you in line. I did that a long time ago when I started Kid One because I'd read all these books on this thing called founderitis and how people go from a constructive behavior to destructive. So I made sure that I had that team calling me to the table, and I had one staff person internally was the reporting body to that group. And some people that may make them uncomfortable and they're like, I'll never do that. But I promise you, good comes from it. And then I think the last is, I always like to use Helen Keller's quote about vision. I'm going to read it so I don't mess it up. The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. And every leader should have vision for their organization. What do they want to see that organization achieve in the direction that they want to go? And so I could go on and on with all the other things that I've seen and learned with the leaders, but that would probably be my top response.
Well, I think the first two you started out with are critical in today's environment, leading by example and walking the talk, because I think what we see so often, I mean, just pick up the newspaper, get on social media, and we're seeing people in leadership positions, in government, in public service that are doing the exact opposite. And I'm really concerned that our next generation of leaders are being enculturated into that mindset. And I think one of the things that's very important, and the reason why we're doing this program, is that I think there needs to be another viewpoint out there.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And we, as the citizens, as far as the elected bodies go, we need to start holding people accountable for their lies. We need to hold them accountable for the actions that they take. And just remember, when election time comes up, let's replace them and get someone better. I always say we've lowered the bar in our country. And that's not a party statement. That's just across the board from municipal all the way to the top. We can do better, but we need better to step forward and run for those office seats that really want to come in and put our country and our communities and our citizens first.
So do what you say you're going to do, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we're just seeing there's really a disease of that going on, or lack of that going on today. So I'm hoping that we can see that turn around, and maybe the next generation will, be able to tackle that issue.
Exactly.
So what advice would you also give to the next generation in respect to their life journey and making a difference?
Mm-hmm. First, chase your passion, not a paycheck. you will be more rewarded and filled by going the direction that your heart and your interest lies in than anything else. And guess what? Just magically, the bills get paid when you love what you're doing, because when you love what you're doing, you're really going to excel. People see it, you shine, and you're good. The other is, let's not always feel that we have to voice our opinions. We've got enough backseat drivers as it is in society today that likes to chime in on every subject. So being a future leader and young person as you move forward, just listen, learn, listen to both sides, help find that common ground in your way that you view your viewpoint is and what you look. Because I think the more we can understand both sides, it is certainly going to help them in a leadership role, because you're going to have sides in an organization when you have staff conflict and other things that are arising. So that's that. And then I think I always tell my daughter, who she's failed to listen, and she's 15. So, I know nothing right now, but it's not about winning the argument. Don't get so focused on being right. Just again, be humble, be kind, be gracious, work hard, and you will absolutely have a wonderful life ahead. Yeah. Going to have bumps in the road. That's life. It's how you deal with those bumps and move past them. It's what will make you a success.
Well, I mean, kind of leads into our final question today. And what takeaways would you leave to help someone become a better person, a better leader? You've touched on a few of them, but I might want to reiterate those.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Number one, go out and get involved in your community. When you get involved in your community and you raise your hand to serve on committees or to go work at a special event, what you're going to do is broaden your network. You're going to get to see so many people in so many different professions and different levels within those professions. It's going to allow you to be a sponge and to watch their mannerisms and their behavior, and to make to grow as a person and an individual, while also doing great, while doing something good and giving back and using the talent that we've been all given. It's just, we got to get out there and do it. So that'd be the first. Get involved in the community. It's a good thing professionally, but also personally. Set life goals, because that's one thing that I've set. I'm nowhere near meeting my life goals. One is to grow hair back, but that's not going to happen. Remember that the grass is not always greener on the other side of the fence. Take what you have, appreciate what you have, and don't make hasty decisions. I've watched so many young folks and folks of all ages, they get their feathers ruffled and they just abruptly quit. Yeah. And now they're in a pickle, or they leave because they think something's better, another job, and they're miserable. So remember that. And I think that the last thing is never be afraid to take a leap of faith. Make it a smart leap of faith. Do your due diligence. Don't just be reactionary. It took me 2 years to build up the confidence and hope that I was going to do the right thing in starting Kid One. But leaps of faith are needed right now. And more people need to have the confidence to go out and tackle some of public society needs. And so just have the courage, and don't be afraid to have courageous conversations either. So,
yeah. Well, I think the last point, courageous conversations, is one of the most difficult things that leaders do. I know I've lost a lot of sleep over conversations that I've had to have with my employees, or to redirect behaviors and things like that. And it's uncomfortable. I don't care how much you do it. It's always uncomfortable, but it needs to be done. And it's a very important aspect of leadership.
It is. When you avoid the courageous conversation, it has a ripple effect in the organization. So you do have to hit it head on, but there's a right way to have a courageous conversation, and definitely a wrong way. And you certainly know that. I'm sure you've seen in your career or heard of the wrong way to have those head-on conversations.
Oh, yeah, actually, I've experienced that a few times. So, even after you get to be in a leadership position, I mean, you didn't get there because you didn't make mistakes along the way, right? So, I mean, we've all had those courageous conversations on the other end of the conversation where you're being schooled up a little bit. So,
You got it. It's our bruises and our bloody noses that make us better at what we do, but that only happens when we're open to looking in the mirror and realizing, okay, I could have done that differently. Failure to take personal responsibility, you will never grow as a leader.
That's very true. And I think taking responsibility is another underlying theme, what needs to happen today.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Russell, thanks so much for being on the show. Your wisdom, I know, will impact many who listen to this podcast, and I just appreciate not only the work that you've done in the fire and emergency services, but with nonprofits and Kid One Transport. You made a real difference and have touched the lives of so many people, and truly appreciate what you've done and the friendship that we've begun, and appreciate you coming back on the show sometime in the future.
Well, Chief, thank you for the kind words, this opportunity. Thank you for what you are doing to inspire that next generation of leaders, but also help our current leaders out there. So thank you for that.
Well, thanks. I think, it's part of what we should be doing as leaders, is to make sure that we're paying it forward to that next generation and sharing some of those experiences and mistakes and lessons learned along the way, so that they may, be better leaders and better people than we have been. So
I agree.
Great, Russell. Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Crucible podcast. If you have a story of adversity you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it. Visit us at theleadershipcruciblepodcast.com and join us next time as we continue to explore how to live lives of success and significance.